Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit Sessions. My name is Danny Pomploon, and I am your host. I am super pumped about today's session. We got session 91, and I got Carling Harps and Patrick Beach on the show, and I'm so pumped because I've been trying to get them on the show for a little bit. We had some scheduling conflicts, and Carling's having a baby, and they're having a family, and all that fun stuff. But I finally got them on the show, which is super incredible. They're two of my favorite humans on this planet. And I got to just talk to them about their journey, which I had tons of questions on. And I wanted to get to know a little more about them and how it all came together and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And we talked about the baby. So that was super fun. Just before I jump into the show, I wanted to remind you listeners out there to support the show. The only way to keep this thing going is by your guys' love and your support. There's two ways to do that. We are looking to try to hit a minimum of 40 donors, hopefully by the end of the year, using our donor box. So it is 100% to get the show sustainable. It helps pay for the producing, getting the bookings, and everything else that goes with it. And then we do a transparent budget so you guys can see exactly where the money is going to. So you can do that down below in the link, or you can leave a review on iTunes because that helps share the show with more people out there, which would give us another opportunity to help the show be supported. So if you want to keep this thing going, see if you can give us a little love down below. Without further ado, here comes session 91. Patrick and Carling, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for having us.
I'm super pumped to get to have you guys. I've been trying to get in contact with you for like a little bit. And then, well, one, you got pregnant. And then two, I was like traveling all over the place. And so we never got to finally sync up, but we finally got to make it happen.
And for three, our email game is suspect. I can't even lie about it. It's questionable.
We're a little slow on the email front. So,
what's going on with that?
I would say it's just our general workflow is
or lack thereof.
There's lots of this. It's just that we live in a sea of randomness, and when you are in that reality, it just email is not one of the things that gets prioritized frequently. It's one of the things that gets prioritized here and there.
Well, I think you probably know when you have it's not like you go sit in an office from 9 to 5 and the first thing you do is get coffee and check your email. So sometimes you're really on top of it, and other times you're like, oh, it's been a while. I should probably check that.
I will say, and not shaming at all, but I will say that I have heard from multiple people that I'm the fastest emailing yoga teacher ever.
Oh, wow.
That's high praise.
Congratulations. I really do think that's a win. It's like something that we strive to improve upon all the time. We're off to quite an interesting start in this podcast, by the way.
Totally. It's just going to get weirder. So it's fine. I also have no idea what work-life balance means. So it's totally fine.
I'm pretty convinced, to be honest, that it's a myth. That
work-life balance?
Yeah. Why do we think that there would ever be a perfect balance between work and life? They're an ebb and flow. There's no way it's going to be balanced.
On today's episode, we're actually just going to cry and talk about how much we work so much, and we have no balance.
No, I like it. I love the hustle of it all. I think it's quite fun. I'm quite entertained by the day-to-day basis of my existence. I just think that it's one of those things that, just like what Carling said, where it's like the biggest flaw with a 9-to-5 job is that, is not the act of the job itself. It's just that straight up sometimes you have a lot of work and sometimes you don't. And
sure.
That's just the truth of it. And then there's the same thing with our job too, except for when we don't have work or there's a lull in activity, all of a sudden you kind of do what you want to do. So that's like the freedom part of it, right? And go for it.
I love it. I've been the last 4 years have been nothing but a grind to get my thing going and make it happen.
Grind though, man. You got to lose that language. A grind is grinding you down to a halt. You got to change that language. That's my hustle, or that's my flow, or that's my activity. Because
I lead this workshop and it's called the Yoga Teacher Hustle. So I guess I'll call it the hustle, but I love like I'm a dreamer. I love being creative, and I love I love being able to see like long term and vision, and I love doing that for other people as well. But then I have the pragmatic people that I'm like, okay, cool, make this shit happen.
Yeah, totally.
But just so that you guys are both aware, this like lull in your life is about to be no more after the middle of July.
There's not been a lull since the last 7 years, but to be honest with you, there hasn't been a lull in reality since January. So like we, it's since January we were doing multiple filmings in January, plus coming back from being in Australia, plus renting our place we currently live in Seattle. February we ran a teacher training and our entire yoga studio in LA by ourselves, essentially. Closed the studio down. In March we finished a 300-hour teacher training at the LA space. Sold our house, had to keep it spotless clean, which was quite absurd experience, and then moved to Seattle 2 days after to then finish the build out here, and then opened that up, and then I went to Europe 3 days after that. So I mean, like that's been this year. Like that's.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys, were you just over LA, or is there family up in Seattle, or like what happened?
So we're actually like born and bred Seattle. So Patrick and I both grew up here. All of our families.
Got it.
And we had always kind of had an intention to open a space here as well, because this is our like OG community. This is where many of our first students were. So we always wanted to have a presence here. And at first the plan was kind of just to be able to split the time and have a good excuse to come back here and teach and run programs in both LA and here.
Yeah.
But once we decided to start trying for a kid, and we kind of had this realization of, our life is a bit chaotic and we really need to embrace support. And part of that was coming home and being around our family.
Yeah.
So we were like, we can do this in LA, but man, wouldn't life be better if we had people to help us with it?
Well, there's something to be said too. I'm sure like your moms are probably so stoked, and it's like the first grandbaby, and then your, brothers and sisters, if you have them, everyone's going to be super, it's a new baby. Everyone's going to be super pumped up.
Yeah. My sister ironically has the same due date as Carly. So,
no way. That's cool.
Yeah.
So 2019 is the biggest year of my mom's life. Safe to say, she's living her dream,
her best life.
It's amazing though. It's like it's a good energy and everything for what we wanted to do going forward. And also, the biggest thing that we really realized about Los Angeles in our time there is that everybody is nomadic, and including us in that environment. And so, like for example, I became really good friends with Dice when we were living down there. We're obviously still good friends, but we would like talk all the time, and then like literally not see each other for 6 months, and then see each other every day for 5 weeks. You know what I mean? It's like. Right. And you just go through these massive periods of time where you're not with people or you're not around people, and that inconsistency, it just didn't really foster the kind of not even community. I mean, I think yes, that in a sense, but also just the fact that we want some level of consistency in one part of our life, at least, because everything else is so erratic. I mean, like, we still travel 6 to 7 months out of the year. You know what I mean? Like from being nomadic for a year and a half a while ago to trying to, cutting the travel schedule down to like 35 weeks a year, and then trying to be in the 30s now. It's just, you want like, when I'm in Seattle, like I want to be able to see my best friends that live here. Colleen wants to be able to see her best friends that live here. You want to have people to spend time with and stuff like that, and have a sense of normalcy. I think that so often it is easy to live in the yoga world, especially if that's where you're a yoga teacher. You're really ingrained in the community in the process, and you enjoy it, and you forget how everybody else lives, and you can overemphasize the efforts of a certain group of people. And so I really think that what ends up happening is you forget what normal looks like, and how so many things that what we're all competing with, in terms of teaching yoga or doing fitness or anything like that, is Netflix. You know what I mean? We're competing with the couch. We're not competing with each other.
Right.
And you forget that if you're only in the hustle of teaching. essentially. And so,
well, yeah, because you're surrounded by your peers and your peers are doing the same thing. And like, you know, your colleagues are like, well, I'm out doing this and out doing this and I'm out going this way and I'm out going that way. And so you kind of only see that small circle when there's a whole lot more going on out there.
Yeah, I think it's a bit ungrounding and not necessarily
Yes.
in a negative way. And I think LA in general is a city that's like that. Everyone's got their toes in a lot of ponds, and everyone's doing a lot of different cool, interesting
That's a
stuff.
lot of toe spreading.
It's a lot of toe spreading, a lot of yoga.
I mean, that's great for yoga, but
Right? But people are all over the place. And so it's not the most grounded place to be.
Yeah.
And I think we realized that with having a kid that we don't have grounding in a lot of places in our life, but we needed to find some. So, which is funny because when we first moved to LA, we were both so stoked. We're like, yeah, let's ready to go. Let's do it tomorrow. And it's the same thing on the way back. By the time once we made the decision to head back, we were like, all right, let's do it. Like, this is going to be great.
Right.
So it's actually been a really smooth transition and quite lovely, despite all the chaos of like selling a house and closing a business and employees and this, that, and the other. It's been so refreshing to just come back home and feel like immediately at ease.
There's the one bummer thing is I didn't get to go to the studio before. I mean, I've seen tons of pictures of it, but I never actually, I was in LA 5, 6, 7 weeks, I think last year, but I was always with Noah and training down there and I was like super swamped, but I wanted to cruise by the studio and just check it out. I never had the opportunity to do it. But I mean, I'll have to go to Seattle and check it out.
Yeah, I was like, you got options still.
I'm trying to do less travel though. Last year kind of like similar. Last year took it out of me. I did, I think like 12 weeks. And by the end of the year, I was just like, I can't, it's solo show. Like I can't do the travel and run the podcast and run the retreats and run the trainings and run my public classes and do corporate classes and do like, it was just like way too much. So part of the thing that I decided to do this year is like, when I was looking at every quarter was like, okay, when's Danny going to have time off? When am I going to go do a training for myself? And when am I just going to have like 4 days to do nothing? It didn't happen.
How did that go?
It hasn't happened.
It's nice that when you put it on a calendar, it feels good to be like, these are my days. Even if it doesn't happen, it's kind of satisfying to like try to plan for it.
It's like creating the to-do list and then writing things that you already did so you can check them off. That's a classic Carling thing.
Oh yeah. I make a to-do list every single day because I'm a little neurotic, but I do almost always put something at the top that I have already done just to have the satisfaction of crossing it off and feeling like I've made progress.
Winner.
The day is already won. So,
I'm getting first place. Watch.
That's what I like to feel every day.
So there's a lot of changes going on for you guys. You have a baby coming up.
We do. We got about 3 weeks till D-Day or whenever she decides to show up.
Yeah,
so for those that, I mean, if anyone hasn't seen this on Instagram or, just whatever, do you want to tell everybody what it is?
Yeah, we're having a baby girl.
Do you guys have a name?
We do have a name, but we're keeping it to the chest.
Okay. All right. I
know. So it's been actually hard. We've let it slip a few times, but yeah.
What if I told you this podcast isn't going to air until after you have the baby, though?
Then I don't know.
Mom's the word, you guys. Mom's the word.
I know. The problem is, who knows when she's going to show up? We're hoping she stays in there until the due date because we got a lot of stuff to do before then. But
you're busy.
but you never know.
How are you guys? So the baby was was it planned, or you guys were ready to talk about like being mom and dad, or it kind of just happened, or?
There's nothing in this life that isn't planned.
Sure.
Like no. I mean seriously. Like
he doesn't mean in like an esoteric there's a grand plan.
Yeah, or everything happens for a reason. No, none of that. Literally, we had a 2-cycle window to make it happen if it was going to happen, and if Carly was going to give birth in 2019, and it happened in the first cycle. So
nice.
We were super fortunate with all of the science working so well. To be perfectly honest, like it's the most mind-blowing thing about the whole experience, besides the growth of young Carly and Cole.
That's the size of it.
But honestly, like that worked so flawlessly. It really, because you hear all the time about how people have a hard time getting pregnant and this, that, and the other thing, and it's something that I really I feel so lucky that it happened the way that it did and as simply as it did, because it really it took a lot of the I don't want to say pressure, but just like the anticipation maybe out of the situation. It allowed it to like, oh, all right, cool, it worked, and now we're doing the thing, as opposed to, because like if we didn't hit those 2 cycles, then we would have waited till the next year in the same cycles.
Yeah, basically trying to plan around travel and things like that.
Yeah.
Like the 300-hour teacher training we have coming up in Bali in November. It's like, okay, well, when could we do this? This is just, it's like so calculated.
Yeah,
but when can we do it where she'd be old enough to travel and I'm recovered enough and things like that to be part of it, not miss out. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel fortunate and lucky that we didn't have to have the stress of trying to figure things out, because obviously I think we all know people that end up having struggles with it, and it can be totally all consuming, which is understandable. But we felt
Carly,
really let it be seamless.
I was going to ask you, do you feel at all, and sometimes it happens with a lot of pregnant yoga teachers where they decide maybe like down the line they might want to teach like yoga for pregnant moms or like baby and me stuff. Have you thought about any of that, or you're not really there yet?
No, I actually have been teaching pre and postnatal for years and years, and I'm a trained doula as well. So,
no way, that's awesome.
So I trained as a doula with Penny Simkin, who is like the original like grandmother of doulas back in 2014, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I really I got into prenatal when I had one of my favorite students up here in Seattle years ago. She got pregnant with twins, and I was like, oh shit, I don't know how to help her. Like, I really
do.
Yeah. And she was like an everyday student, and I felt so at a loss, just realizing I didn't know anything. And so I delved into pre and postnatal yoga back then. And then that sparked kind of this like weird obsession with the birth world. Not in that like I wanted to have kids back then, because I didn't, but I just thought it was so fascinating. And women's health has always fascinated me, but I was just so empowered by the idea of how everything works and the way that the hormones and the science, I just thought it was fascinating. So I kind of like jumped in head first.
The fact that you're growing a human inside of your belly is fascinating.
Utterly fascinating. And so, I've been kind of like a little bit in the birth world for a long time. And my hope is that when I come back from this, to be able to start to expand the pre and postnatal program at Commune in Seattle. And I'm writing an ebook right now all about prenatal yoga. And then once we get to the other side of this, I'm going to write one about postnatal as well.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a few moms that like, I have a lot of moms that come to my class, actually, surprisingly enough. And I teach, pretty, I guess like a vigorous class or whatever, but they just stay and chill the entire time. And then when they're ready, I send them off to, we have a really awesome teacher here in the city, Jane Austen. She's like the mama of mamas and does a lot of doula work and so on and so forth. I just send them over to her when they're ready, but I see you practicing, girl. You're still getting after it.
I think there's this misconception. I mean, there's so much fear around everything in America, but
for sure,
that if you're pregnant, it's some disease or you can't do anything. Even my initial,
or that you're crazy.
I gotta love that one. Like, oh, her hormones are raging. Don't let her make any decisions.
She wants
ice cream and pickles. She's crazy. There's so many misconceptions that I think we forget that pregnant women are still just women, and it's not the only thing in their life that's going on. Like, everything else doesn't grind to a halt because you got pregnant. You still got to go to work and deal with all the BS and stuff like that. And you still want to practice, and you still want to move, and you also still want to do hard stuff for the most part.
Yeah, so, for sure. You just got to be a little more mindful of like the elastin and whatnot. But
there are things that need to be modified and like things that should be taken into account if you want to have an easier postnatal time. I mean, I always say that like prenatal is whatever, it's 10 months, but postpartum is forever. So you do what pregnant matters for what happens later, but it doesn't mean you can't still challenge yourself and find satisfaction in doing the stuff you loved beforehand. Not everything has to be put on hold.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's there's that common misconception that just because you're pregnant, you can't do this, and that. I mean, I have moms come into my class and they're just crushing it the entire time. Yeah.
There's still plenty of options.
How's the new studio going up in Seattle?
Yeah, it's going great. It's a good experience so far.
I think, sorry to interrupt you. One of the most satisfying things about up here is because we both started our teaching careers here and actually in the same neighborhood where the current studio is. Like, I grew up down the street. I went to high school and college. I went to University of Washington right near the studio. So for us, it's been this kind of lovely homecoming, like getting to see students that we had a decade ago come back and see how much they've grown and how much literal dedication and passion they've had when we haven't been present for it, has been so like humbling and gratifying. It's made the experience really sweet, even just in the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, I was keeping up when you guys were posting, just like getting ready to open and whatnot. But I'm sure are you guys like, is the studio in like Seattle, like city center, or?
It's in the Wallingford neighborhood, which is right next to the University of Washington.
Yeah, so we're just north of downtown by like maybe 10 minutes. Seattle's really not that big of a city compared to say LA, where our studio
LA is not a city, it's a sprawl.
Yeah, LA is a giant sprawl.
It's aggressive.
On the outskirts in LA, like Highland Park, where we were there is
the fact that where we live and Santa Monica is still considered to be one city is hilarious, or Beverly Hills or West Hollywood, whatever. It's hilarious. It's not real. There should be like 15 different cities. That's a conversation for a different time. But but yeah, no, it's going really well. I guess one of the biggest things for us is that with this space, so often people are like trying to help create change in the world, and they only think about how they can do that with like social causes. But I think one of the best ways to actually create change is to provide good people opportunities to do things and empower them within themselves. And that's really what we are striving to do with this space, like giving people jobs, giving people the opportunities to teach, giving people the opportunities to share what they love, and inspire and motivate people to become, better versions of themselves, if you want to say that, or just more conscious, more alert people. I think that's, really our biggest drive, especially even with awakening yoga on a bigger scale, is like, how can you be more aware, more conscious, and more connected? I think that is so often, with yoga, it starts out as a foreign thing, and then it moves into like a ritualistic thing, and sometimes it moves into a routine thing. And I think our biggest goal is to avoid routine and keep things ritualistic. And so, the more that we're giving people these opportunities to be empowered, the more it really feels like we're helping create a sense of a sense of how you could be yourself in a different way. You know what I mean? Like how you can exist in the modern world in many forms. And I think that it's a different way to look at things, because you don't have to be who you were. You really have the opportunity every day to be who you want to be. And I think that when you begin to look at things in that way, all of a sudden, there's more opportunity than you thought possible.
Yeah. And I would also say too, it's like providing people the tools and the techniques to get them to look at things in a certain way and to reflect and contemplate, so they can see things in a new light. And, I always call it like stepping away from the story, that drama that we play over and over in our heads of like, this happened to me and this was done to me, and then you start to realize, actually, like, no, there's some personal responsibility that needs to be taken there. And also I have the power to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just giving people the space to kind of have that self-discovery. I think it's easy to try to control everything. And especially as studio owners, as business owners, or even as teachers, like we kind of joke that typically as teachers, if you end up being a career yoga teacher, you probably have some control issues that you want to exercise out on other people at some point.
Sure.
But as it's just probably just a trait that most of us have. We can all be okay with that.
Oh my God, we're all type A.
Right? Like there's a reason that you end up where you are, or that you commit to the hustle or whatever it is of being a day-to-day yoga teacher, because it's not an easy job. But as studio owners, for us to, even for our staff, for the teachers and people that work with us, our goal is to always just kind of give them a space to be the best version of themselves as teachers, not to create like a army of little mini Patrick and Carlings that teach just like us, or try to control things or make it the Patrick and Carling show. Our goal is to we only let ourselves teach 3 to 4 times a week, and everything else is just about having a balanced schedule and making sure there's diversity and opportunity for the students to find a teacher that fits for them, so that they can, find the right kind of practice that works and isn't just constrained by what we think it should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options out there, and if one teacher's trying to make everyone happy, you got a problem. That's not the way it should work. There's so many teachers that open so many doors, and then once they pass through those, then they introduce them to somebody else, and then eventually they introduce them to somebody else. And there's so much information and so much knowledge out there, and I think for one person to be that for another person, like to be the everything, that's like a really big ask.
Oh yeah.
And then you start to get into like the false guru, thing like it starts to lead to a really slippery slope.
Definitely does. Yeah. It's not good for anyone. And I mean, we say this a lot, but it's like yoga can improve, we believe, everyone's life. Like everyone can benefit from yoga, but that's not to say that everyone is going to benefit from the same yoga. So there's a practice, there's a teacher for everyone. It's just unlikely to be the same. And for us to expect it to be the same would be crazy talk.
Oh my God, I completely agree. I completely agree. Although I still want people to come to my classes.
Also, our classes are great.
Yeah. Also, we're really good teachers, so come to our classes. Thanks. That's the end of the show. Come to our classes. Bye. So you guys are up to, I know you guys have, so you up in the studio, and then you were mentioning Bali earlier. So you guys are going to be out in Bali in November.
Yeah, we'll be in Canggu. We've got actually a 300-hour training. Canggu is like one of my most favorite places in Bali because it's still a little more chill. It's not the craziness of some of the more touristy areas, although I'm sure it will eventually get there.
Like everything else, Bali.
Yeah. But for now, it's awesome, and we're excited to be able to. I mean, for us planning stuff, we run 200 and 300 hours every year, but it's kind of also just this exercise in, well, where do we want to go for a month? Well, we're happy to hang out in Bali for a month, so I got to assume some of you guys are happy to hang out in Bali for a month.
So it's a full month immersion. Yeah.
So it's November 1st through December 1st, and it's just like a solid 30 days of all things yoga, which is, I mean, our dream and other people's.
And is it going to be like, what's the schedule like for this? And tell me a little more about the curriculum for your 300-hour.
So we run all of our programs through Awakening Yoga Academy, which is our yoga school. And the 300-hour, what I love about the 300-hour is obviously you get to dive a little deeper past just the basics of the foundations. But also for us, it means that you get more intensive time. I think usually at 300 hours, students are more adept to work through longer practices, so we can kind of actually dive into stuff without that burnout. The gloss over, you see it in 200-hour students' eyes at like hour 2 each day.
Drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah. And it's like, there's just only so much people can absorb. Yeah. So for us, the 300 hours, we get to dive into more the nuance of awakening yoga, which means breaking down the different pillars. We work with these 4 pillars of solar vinyasa, of lunar mobility, of strength, and restorative. So people get a more well-rounded approach, which for us is so satisfying. So we get to talk about the strength and the biomechanics. We get to talk about restorative and yoga nidra, and we get to dive into more than just, okay, how are we going to get you through your first class? And like, dear God, you're going to be okay.
Right. Who does, like, as far as like the workload while you guys are out there, do you guys like co-lead everything together, or do you take certain subjects and then Patrick, you take another few, or?
I think I probably teach the majority of the classes, mm-hmm. and Carling leads more of the discussions, and we just kind of split the breakdown time. Mm-hmm. But it's really, we don't ever co-teach. That's never been a thing that we've ever done.
Yeah.
It's really just not our vibe. No knock to people that do it, but
right.
I think it's in my opinion, it's a bit weird, just because it's a multi-experience thing. And while Carling and I strive to be on the same wavelength all the time, I don't think we teach anyway similar. So, we both kind of play our own natural parts and support each other as best we possibly can, and that's just kind of how we build into the training and the experience of it. It's just nice. We've always worked really well together, and that's kind of how we've created all the things that we have. And so it's a huge benefit to our relationship, because it gives us a kind of like this 4th or 5th dimension in terms of where we can go as 2 people coming together. So I know that's a bit off of like how we split the work, but personally it's really cool because it's seeing each other grow into these specific roles or handle situations. It's really cool to see the evolution of that compared to even a few years ago.
Who's the philosophy nerd from out of both of you?
I think Carling is more of the technicality nerd in terms of the way her mind works. Like, Carling can troubleshoot anything, and she can. She is also a much more a technical learner than I am, and mm-hmm. I think I'm probably more of the spiritual side of things.
Yeah, I would absolutely say Patrick is way more on the esoteric, energetic side of things. Metaphorical, yeah. And can just like wordsmith his way through something that that is every time when you come with like a philosophy lecture, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that was in there. But
I love that.
for me, my brain is much more technical. I mean, I'm more of the anatomy, biomechanics, like let's talk about force and load and skeletal structure.
And yoga history
and yoga history
and like the actual factual
lineage
lineages and learnings and things like that.
Yeah. So, but it's funny because we've always complemented each other while it's the same thing in the rest of our work because we manage everything together and kind of always have. But it's like Patrick's always been the big idea person, whereas I'm much more of the executor. And so
he's the dreamer, you're the pragmatic person. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you would work together any other way. I mean, to be honest, because if you're both the dreamers, it's like, how does anything get done? And if you're both like eventually someone's got to do the stuff. Someone has to build the website. Someone has to send out the emails.
For sure.
If you're both executors, like it's easy for me to think too small. And you know what I mean? Whereas, and same with Patrick, it's easy for him to think too big. So we can find our way in the middle with whether it's trainings or business or anything. I think because we have individual strengths and we don't really try to pull from each other's pool. It's easy to say, that's a you job, that's a me job. Okay, we got it.
It's super important, man. I mean, I have, a couple people that help me do things, for the business and whatnot. And like I said earlier, like I'm really good at being like, all right, this is what I want to happen. And this is what I see going next. And I want things to look like this and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I just want to teach the yoga and show up and chant and do my bhakti thing. And like, that's what I want. I want to sit there and play my harmonium, tell people to love themselves. And then I want other people to like, yeah, sure. Something, a mailing newsletter. I got to do that, or it has to go out, or someone do that, please.
Yeah. So can someone please take care of this?
Yeah. Can someone please make this happen?
How'd you learn the harmonium?
I bought one and I went on YouTube, and a YouTube University did.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. If you guys want me to come up there and do a couple chanting workshops, I'll teach you guys how to sing and open up your hearts and do some bhakti. It's pretty fun.
Harvey can only sing country music.
The funny thing is I used to make fun of the harmonium. I talk about this all the time. Like I used to go into, I was just such a stuck up prick when I first went into yoga. I was like, I'm an athlete. Like, is this going to be hard and it's going to be challenging because I want to work out? And, like, it wasn't until like after like later on down the line, but like chanting, I'd be like, oh, you fucking hippies. Like, here we go again. Like Hare Krishna and this bullshit. And then a few years ago, I had this one teacher who just really came in and he brought everyone down on like these 3 ohms with the harmonium. And I actually, like, I remember opening my eyes and looking at people and being like, whoa, he just brought everyone down on the same vibration, and that was kind of cool. And then at the end of it, he brought everyone on a chant. And I remember not chanting, but looking around and seeing how connected people were. And I'm like, oh, this is all just about coming down on vibration, whether you're saying these words or other words. Like, it's all about the intention behind it. I just fell in love with it. And it's actually, believe it or not, this is going to sound so cheesy, but it's changed my life in a lot of ways. Like, it's when I sing and when I chant, like, I'm not really worried about how beautiful my voice is or whatever, but it's more like this joy comes out of me and this playful side comes out of me. I mean, anytime I get to sing and chant, it's like pure love. It's like, these things that we used to do when we were kids and we didn't give a shit, like who judged us or whatever, like dancing. And it's now something that I get to do as an adult, and I get to share that practice with my students as well.
What was more nerve-wracking? The first time you ever taught yoga or the first time you busted out the harmonium and led chanting class?
I mean, same. Yeah. Like the first time I taught yoga, I blacked out. Like, I don't remember.
It's probably better that way for all of us.
I swear. I don't like, I remember the class. I remember who was in it. I'll never forget any of that. And I remember telling people how nervous I was. I was like, I wasn't supposed to be there, and some teacher didn't show up. And like, I was a trained teacher, and they're like, you could teach it. And I don't really remember like the whole class. I don't even know what came out, but I will say the first time that I chanted in front of a class, I told them how nervous I was. I was like, you guys, it was on a New Year's workshop. And the whole point was like getting rid of the past and, calling in things to the future. And I was like, one of the things that I want to get rid of is the story that I can't chant, or that it's not for me. And so I figured I would share that vulnerability with you guys, and I'm going to do my first chant with you guys. And it was like 60 something people in a room, and I just went for it. And I'm pretty sure I fucked up like all the chords, and like, I was probably like sounding like a dead cat, but it was, I don't know. It's just still worked. I was definitely like shaking and trembling, but like afterwards, it's like, it's kind of funny. I come back to my harmonium over and over and over again. And it's just cool. Like when you take a look at it next time or see when it happens, or when you see everyone like come down from like 3 ohms on a harmonium, like it's just really, you can feel the resonance, the vibration of everybody, like just coming in, you know, we're all vibration, you know, and to see everyone come in on that same note is like really beautiful.
Well, and you guys have such a strong Bhakti community in the Bay Area. Like there's,
oh my God. Yeah, for sure.
Not a lot of places that have such a stronghold of that. It's like every geographic area, like LA has a big stronghold community of Kundalini practitioners. And like up here in Seattle, there's always been a lot of Baptiste and Bikram. And it's wild to me in San Francisco that such a strong Bhakti community has emerged. I mean, it's not wild knowing that there's people like Janet leading that there and things like that. But
Right.
There's not a lot of areas that I feel like we've taught in where I've seen so much Bhakti as I have in the Bay Area.
There's a lot of Bhakti yoga up here, a ton of it. You know, I wouldn't consider myself like a Bhakti yogi per se, but I definitely do add elements of it in my class. Like, you know, I always start class and end class with, you know, chanting and just like, you know, a few minutes, mainly because I love the sound of it. I mean, I could sit there and play. I would sit there and play to the entire class, you know, the entire time because I love the sound of it so much.
I like that. Yeah, I don't feel like, I'm trying to think, I guess New York too, maybe. New York has a pretty stronghold. I mean, I remember I've taken one harmonium lesson with some friends of mine that own Creature Yoga. I was in Byron Bay, and I took a harmonium lesson with my friends Bess and Tall. And I just remember being like, this is so hard. Like, what? Like as an adult trying to learn how to play an instrument, I remember just feeling utterly so stupid trying to coordinate myself.
Oh my! I'm gonna make it a point to get up there, and I'll take you guys through like a day. I'll take your students through like a day of just like bhakti and chanting, and kind of demystify it and break it down for everybody, and then teach you how to play the harmonium. It's really sweet. It's really easy too.
I believe you that it can be easy.
The resistance in Carly's voice right now.
In her mind, Carly sees herself as Casey Musgraves, but in reality, it's probably
on the IRL side of things.
She's more of a Velvet Elvis vibe.
I am more of a country vibe than a kirtan vibe, to be honest. I remember my first kirtan though, during one of my first 200 hours with Annie Carpenter. We were in Venice years ago, and part of the 200 hour, I mean, we were so lucky in this program that this was when like Shiva Ray and Sean Korn and Eric Schiffman were all teaching at Exhale, where we were doing this 200. So they were all part of like our class observations. But Krishna Das came and did a kirtan, and it was required for the 200. But I remember sitting there being like, this guy is cool and he's such a good storyteller, but looking around and being like, what is going on? This is so like beyond my Western head of how to deal with this. And I just couldn't make it end tails of it.
I mean, same, dude. I like made fun of these people and called them like hippies and nerds and be like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, I just couldn't be, but you know, I also came from like bartending at like nightclubs and stuff into yoga. So I was like, what is going on in here? I just want to work out. And now I'm like, let's all hold hands and chant for a minute.
The practice, it grows on you.
For sure. It's ever changing. Are you kidding? Yeah, it's always ever changing. Like, don't get me wrong though. We're going to like chant for a little bit and then like, boom, get up and let's do some core work and get moving. I kind of like lie to them, you know, I like lead them in sweetly and then I just break them down. That's awesome. Well, do you guys have anything else coming up that we should know about? The outside. So we got Bali, we got the new studio, we got a new baby.
What else do we have going on?
It's an ever-evolving process of experience. I don't know. We're honestly, we're constantly working on things. We just released our own podcast called Life in Commune. It came out this week. We have 3 episodes into that. We're running a 200-hour teacher training in February up here in Seattle. We're going to be teaching in Europe in most of October before the November training, and also teaching in Hong Kong in the first week of December. So again, the machine is kind of always going. It's always moving, and it's it's a fun journey to be on. So, this kid is going to go to more countries than most people do in the first 6 months of its life, and we're just going to see how that goes and ride the free the free plane ticket, right? So you don't need to pay for the kid until they're 2 or something like that. So
that's pretty sweet.
Just gonna strap her on and take her as many places as she can go, and
just gotta play that advantage and
see how it goes.
Yeah, and see how it goes for us too. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're really trying to figure out moving forward is just like, what is it? What does everything we've done for the last 8 or 9 years look like with her?
Right.
You know, and I think that's like the biggest question that we're working on answering ourselves. And I'm sure every parent is constantly thinking about things that are very similar to that. Whereas like you know, what does it look like? Oh, like we've done all of this together. I mean, because Carly and I have been together for a decade, right? With just us and living that experience, and almost every other night now we just sit and we laugh and like, oh shit, like it's going to be different. Like this is like we're weeks or days or who knows away from all of this changing, and again, not changing for better or changing for worse. I mean, obviously hoping for better, you know, not, you know, but just all of a sudden,
but just inevitable change,
it being a completely different experience between us. And it's actually one of the things I value the most is that we've had all this time together beforehand, so that, you know, we've had this time with just us, and then now it's very easy to welcome somebody else into that equation, and seeing how that feels and that looks, and how we can adapt and grow and learn how to be parents. Like, I don't think we know anything. We don't try and read any books or anything like that. We're just kind of trying to find our way into our own process with it, and just really learning, you know, how we can go about that in the best way possible. You know, I think that it's so funny, but I think it's like one of the obligations for human beings, like especially if you're someone that's conscious, that, you know, is thinking about things on a deeper level, a more connected level. Like we need more people like this to be having kids, because so many people, especially, you know, it's such a second nature thing for most people to just have a kid, and they're all of a sudden not thinking about, like, you know, they're not having these deeper thoughts or deeper revelations, I guess. Essentially, you know, the population needs more intelligent people. Long story short on that.
Right.
Blurb, but,
well, you know, a lot of yoga people, I won't go too off track, but I feel like we meet a lot of yoga couples that intentionally choose not to have kids, which I can absolutely respect. And there's no obligation for a woman to have a child to even be considered motherly or anything like that. But I do find it interesting that so many people in a discipline that is about evolution and spirituality and figuring out how to elevate consciousness intentionally choose to not pass that along. I find that interesting, not good or bad. We meet a lot of yoga couples that intentionally don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, to each their own. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Carly, will you remind me again? What was the baby's name?
I was going to tell you, but then I didn't. I know. You're so close. Just let it slip right out. You know,
I was smooth though, right? It was there.
It was very smooth, and I hesitated. I didn't do it.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on the show. I know you guys are super busy. You're about to have a baby. You got a new studio. You got tons of things going on. So I've been looking forward to talking to y'all for quite a bit. I'm just so pumped to have you guys and to connect, and I'm excited to see how everything unfolds.
Shit, us too.
Yeah, right. Buckle up.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Danny. It's been great. We appreciate it. And I'm glad to finally connect also.
Same. And until the next Yogi Misfit sessions, this is Danny, Carling, and Patrick saying peace out.
Take it easy.